we really need to talk about Manchester. Some brand new, pretty shocking figures on homelessness have just come out, and honestly, they paint a picture of a city facing a massive crisis. So we're going to break down what these numbers actually mean for the people living there. Okay, let's start with a number that should really make you pause. According to the housing charity Shelter, right now in the city of Manchester, 1 out of every 61 people is homeless. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 person out of every 60 you might see on your commute, at the shops, or on your street. And here's the part it's absolutely devastating. When you look inside that big statistic of nearly 10,000 people without a home in the city, almost half of them, 4,678, are kids. To give you a sense of the scale of this, if you zoom out to the entire northwest region, the total number of people without a home is over 25,000. Now, to picture that, imagine Manchester's brand new Co-op Live Arena. Yeah, you could fill every single seat in the biggest indoor arena in the UK with a number of homeless people in the region. So how does Manchester's situation stack up against its neighbors? I mean, is this a problem specific to the city, or is the whole region in the same boat? Well, the data tells a really fascinating story. What's just wild about this is the huge difference between the boroughs. I mean, look at this. While every area is dealing with this, Manchester's rate of 1 in 61 is just worlds away from somewhere like Stockport, where it's 1 in 532. This data from Shelter shows so clearly that while this is a regional issue, Manchester is, without a doubt, the epicenter of the crisis. But what do we even mean when we say someone is homeless? You know, for most of us, the first image that comes to mind is someone sleeping rough on the street. But the reality for the huge majority of people is actually very, very different. Yeah, see, the official definition is way broader than you might think. Homelessness actually covers anyone who doesn't have a permanent, stable home. And that means we're also talking about thousands and thousands of families who are stuck living in what's called temporary accommodation, places like B&Bs, hostels, and other housing the council provides. And this chart, wow, it really drives that point home, doesn't it? Over 90% of the people we're talking about are what you'd call the hidden homeless. Rough sleeping is the most visible part of this crisis for sure, but it is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. And let's just talk about that word temporary for a second, because it is incredibly misleading. Shelter's research found that families are spending, on average, almost 3 years stuck in this so-called temporary housing. This isn't just a quick stopgap. For thousands of people, this has become their long-term reality. So the big question is, how did we get here? How did things get this bad? Well, according to the charities working on the front line, it's not just one thing, but a real perfect storm of different factors all hitting at once. According to Shelter, you've got this massive shortage of social homes. At the exact same time, private rents are just going through the roof, way beyond what most people can afford. Then you add in a freeze on housing benefits, so they haven't kept up with how much things actually cost. And, fundamentally, we're just not building enough new, affordable social housing. It basically creates this trap that's really easy to fall into and almost impossible to get out of. So with that perfect storm raging, what's being done about it? Well, the national government has just come out with a new £3.5 billion strategy that's designed to tackle this crisis head-on. Okay, so the whole plan really boils down to 3 main promises they want to achieve by 2029. First, they want to cut the number of long-term rough sleepers in half. Second, they want to stop the unlawful use of B&Bs as housing for families. And third, they want to focus on prevention, basically stopping more families from becoming homeless in the first place. And you can really hear the ambition in this quote from the Housing Secretary, Steve Reed. The stated goal here is to make homelessness rare, brief, and not repeated. They're really framing this new national strategy as a huge turning point. A national plan sounds great on paper, right? But what does it actually mean for the people on the ground in a city like Manchester? Well, the local response shows a much more complicated picture, with some pretty different ideas on whether this plan can actually work. So, Manchester City Council says it knows it faces a unique challenge. But as the deputy leader, Joanna Midgley, points out here, they argue that while numbers are going up steeply in other places, the figures for temporary housing and rough sleeping inside Manchester itself have remained relatively stable. So here's where it gets really interesting, because it all depends on how you look at the data. On one hand, you have the council saying the situation isn't getting any worse locally. But on the other hand, Shelter's data shows a big 15% jump across the entire northwest in just the last year. That kind of suggests the pressure is building up all around the city. And this brings us right back to the perspective of the people on the front line. John Ryan from Shelter Manchester basically says, again, what we see on the streets is just the tip of the iceberg. From their point of view, until those huge core issues, like the supply of social housing and benefits people can actually live on, are fixed, this crisis is just going to continue. So we're left with this really important question. We've got these staggering numbers on one side and a bold new government plan on the other. But is this plan really enough to fix the root causes, the simple lack of affordable homes? Or is it just patching over the cracks of a crisis that's only going to get bigger?